an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering sex education, Season 2, Episode 7. In this episode, Otis has to deal with the consequences of the wild night that he had the night before. I appreciate them making sure we knew it was Thursday. And also we have Jean dealing with the fallout of what happened with her ex-husband, and it's awful. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Ashleigh for commissioning this episode. And also thank you to Ashleigh for once again coming early to the chat and dropping all of the character names for me. I really appreciate you. And I just noticed, while I was getting this episode ready, this is the penultimate episode of the season. So after this, I'll be done until the show drops its new season. I think in September was when I saw somebody mention, I think somebody said, God, sometimes I swear I dreamed shit. So, I don't know if Ashleigh is going to be commissioning the next season. I assume so. But I'm going to have to wait because I'm booked through October already. So everybody's going to be spoiled ahead of me again. So unfair. So this episode was really great, you guys. I'm going to get the Otis stuff out of the way first, for obvious reasons, because he's the one I am the most frustrated with. The whole thing with Otis and Ruby is really funny. I enjoy Ruby getting a bit more to do, because she is, at times, a one-note character, and that's not an inherently bad thing, depending on what role they play in the overall narrative. But it is nice for there to be a little bit of dimension given to the, bitchy popular girl. And I don't know where it's going. Obviously, there's only one episode left of this season. But I don't need Ruby to be completely... What's the word I want? I don't need her to be completely humanized beyond the bitchy popular girl. I don't need to feel complete empathy for her, but her having a little bit of extra depth is nice. I do think that it's significant that she wasn't in the women bonding session that happened after school, the detention. Obviously that was a necessity due to the fact that she slept with Otis, and that the whole thing going on with them is very important, dealing with getting the morning after pill and how all of that works. But I can't help but wonder if the writers knew that they had made Ruby too bitchy to bond with the other women, other girls, really. And so they were like, all right, we're going to have to do something to write her out of the next episode, because she definitely cannot be there for that. She will ruin it. And they were just like, I guess we'll have her fuck Otis. So first of all, the two of them definitely did have sex, but when they wake up, they cannot tell if they used a condom. She's pretty sure she did, but she doesn't totally remember. Otis, for his part, does not remember any of it at all. And it's sort of interesting to have this happen to a character like him, because he is so controlling. And I mean that of himself, really. He is so uptight that for him to lose out on this sort of fantasy idea of losing his virginity in a way that is entirely his own choice. He got drunk, and I say entirely his own choice, but getting drunk and having sex with somebody, I'm not even sure if this would be considered consensual, according to the law in a lot of states now. But it does not appear that he was coerced by Ruby. It does not appear she was coerced by him. So we're going ahead with it being consensual and his choice. but it's as close as you're going to get to like the choice almost being taken away from him. You know, the alcohol impaired his judgment so much that what he actually wanted got completely sidelined for what the drunk self of now wanted. And I am really curious if this is going to be a good thing in the long run or not. Like, in some ways, I think getting the pressure taken off is probably a good thing. He would have attached so much importance to the first time that he had sex with somebody. And for somebody like him, I just don't see any situation actually winding up being satisfactory to him. I think he would find fault no matter how it went. So probably it's just a good thing to rip the Band-Aid off. And the fact that he can't remember it might be a bit of a blessing, because first time sex, you know, I have heard some real horror stories. Mine wasn't too bad, but it was like, I feel like I had one of the best case scenarios. I lost my virginity to somebody who was also a virgin, who I wound up dating for years afterwards. I was in the kind of scenario that Otis would want to be in, you know, but I do know a lot of people who their losing their virginity was so underwhelming. Sometimes genuinely just like, oh God, I really wish that I could forget that. Maybe this is good for him, you know? So the next day, first of all, Ruby makes her escape downstairs. She says, I covet your pantsuits to Jean before absolutely booking it out of the house in a moment that I was just like, I don't appreciate your tone, Ruby. I do covet her pantsuits. So how about you don't talk that way to my woman, okay? But he himself, first of all, he's panicking because he doesn't know whether he used a condom or not. He comes downstairs and his mother is like in the midst. She is still very hungover herself. She is in the midst of this living room that it looks like it looks like a frat house, you know, it really does. And as she puts it, I have clients coming this afternoon. What the fuck am I supposed to do? He tells her he'll help her clean up later, but when he comes home later, it's done. She wasn't going to be able to wait for later. She had work to do. And he is so hungover that he like winds up vomiting on the way to school. And when he comes in, Eric is just the usual bouncy self, despite also getting drunk, I would have thought, of the shots that he was doing. But Eric seems utterly unaffected. And then Lyndon tells him that he slept with Ruby, which is really funny because Ruby told him to not tell anybody. But then somebody else in the hallway says something to him. So I don't know if she said something or if it got around because people just saw the two of them dancing and then going upstairs together. But evidently, it was already, people were already talking about it. I'm just hoping that she doesn't like hold him responsible for that, because we know that he only told Eric, and I don't think Eric would have told anybody else. I don't know, though. He can have a big mouth, so who knows? And he runs into Maeve as somebody is telling him, I heard you banged Ruby. And he's trying, like in the middle of trying to apologize when this person says that. And she just looks at him and says, congratulations, and walks away. And I don't really know what I would want from him, because what he did was so shitty that I can't imagine any apology adequate. You know, other than getting on the school PA system and very publicly, purposefully taking it all back in the same grandstanding sort of manner in which you said it in the first place. That would be the problem for me, was that he like climbed onto a table to get everyone's attention. He went out of his way to make sure as many people heard this as possible when she has already talked to him about the ways in which reputations hang around you forever in this town and at this school. So he'd have to do something equally as effective to take it back. And I just don't know if he is capable enough of understanding what he did in the first place to adequately take responsibility in the statement enough that it would make me feel better at all if I were her. You know? Because I feel like he would blame the whole thing on having been drunk, but all of the rest of his actions were not due to being drunk. You know, just the general assholery that we had been seeing from him already. So I'm going to jump to, he gets summoned from class by Ruby, who basically is like, we have to go buy the morning after pill because the more I think about it, the more I'm not sure that we used a condom. And they go to this little drugstore, and it's interesting to me because, like, you know, in the US, convenience stores and drugstores are often the same place. So I was assuming that if they went to get the morning after pill, they would have to talk to Adam or just be in that store in general. And I know it's school hours. The thought that came to mind was like, I hope that Ola isn't behind the counter there. But, she wouldn't be. If anybody's there, it's Adam. We're going to talk about Adam, man. But that, I almost don't want to talk about it because it makes me so sad. But anyway, it turns out that it's an entirely different building. Teeny tiny, this little drugstore. And when he first goes in, he tries to casually buy the morning after pill in this series of like mutterings that are just incredibly embarrassing to watch. And eventually, when he gets the words out, the woman says that she can't sell it to him because he doesn't have a vagina. And I'm really curious about this because, first of all, she's making an assumption that trans people exist. How does she know? But let's go ahead and just be like cisnormative. What if the woman is like afraid to come in, afraid that it'll get back to people? She questions Ruby about her last period and everything right at that counter, open for everyone in a room that's like 12 by 10. Anyone would hear. Would she make people step outside in order to have this conversation? If she did, I feel like that would indicate right there what exactly the conversation is about. I'm just surprised that men can't buy. Like, what is the concern? Are we worried that men are going to be spiking women's drinks with the morning after pill? Like, why can't a man purchase it? It's like, Owen can go pick up my birth control pills at the pharmacy, you know, and granted that's a prescription. It's a different situation, but nevertheless, I just found it to be sort of an odd rule. And I don't know if that's true of the US, but I'm curious if anybody has any further information. I've never had to buy the morning after pill. So yeah, I don't know. So eventually he comes outside. He tells her that she has to go in. There's the whole conversation. This woman asks if she's ever had to have it before, and she gets indignant, just like she got with Otis when he asked, saying, "No, I'm not a slut." Girl, look, the fact that you are buying it right now, it's weird that you're like, well, if I have to buy it one more time than this, that equals slut. We have such arbitrary lines in the sand that we draw, don't we? So she winds up getting it, and he goes to the convenience store where Adam works a little bit after that in order to get her a drink. I loved this scene. First, she asks for diet, and he gets her regular, which I did sympathize with her on that because I hate regular soda. Give me diet only. I just can't handle the syrupiness of regular soda. And he has to check out with Adam, who asks, "How is he?" And I really appreciated, Otis doesn't even like get mad exactly. He just says, "Oh, are you like chatting now?" And Adam says, "I've been working on my small talk." And he tells Adam, "I don't know what's going on with the two of you, but if you hurt him, I will mess you up." And I feel like it's easy to forget how intimidating Adam has been to Otis as well up to this point. So Otis saying this actually counts for more in my eyes, because this isn't him posturing against a stranger. This is somebody who's really like, I know exactly who you are and what you're about, and I don't fucking care. And I started to like think twice about what I was saying mid-sentence, and then I finished my fucking sentence, because you know what? I meant what I fucking started to say. And I love that energy, just that loyalty, and having Eric's back in that way, I really appreciated. So he and Ruby have a little bit of commiseration over, because when she's being asked all these questions about her cycle and her habits, she's asked if there's been any like extra stressors in her life lately. And she mentions that her father was recently diagnosed with MS. And it's clear when she says this that she feels self-conscious talking about this in front of Otis. And later on, when they're discussing the fact that they slept with each other at all, she tells him that she, when she's depressed, tends to sleep with nerdy guys. And he asks why. And she said, because they always think they're in love with me, which feels amazing. And I was like, oh, that's actually pretty good. You know, I felt like that was a really honest assessment. And I can understand if somebody were to hear that and just think, what a bitch. But there is some truth to the feeling of being worshipped by somebody who sees you as a being so far above them that you would seek out when you're feeling low and like you need some boost of some kind. And I just really understood her in that moment. I wasn't really, you know, like I said, dated the same person all through high school. So there was like a small blip in there, but mostly. And so this was not a mechanism that I used, but I could have seen it happening to me, you know, because there were definitely a lot of like sweet nerds who had crushes on me in high school. And they all knew that I was with somebody and I was not a cheater. But I certainly wasn't like hugely discouraging of them flirting with me and stuff, because it was an ego boost. You can't help but enjoy that. There's a reason that so many people flirt, and it's because it makes you feel better about yourself, and it's exciting. You know, it gives you a burst of adrenaline and dopamine and whatnot. So that is the explanation for why she probably was sleeping with Otis, is because she was upset about that. But then she immediately sort of like curbs it by saying, also, I had just gotten my eyebrows done and I felt like one was like lopsided to the other. And I just really appreciated this moment with Ruby, because it felt like what was happening was that shit got a little bit too serious. And she decided that she was going to make a bit of a joke in order to sidestep talking about her father's diagnosis. One could read it the other way as, oh, maybe she was upset about her dad, and then surprise, it's actually funny because she was upset about something way more superficial. You could read it either way, and either way, it's funny. But if it is the first one, that is just always how I cope with shit. I always have to make a joke and like steer us away from the thing about me that's like upsetting me. So I just chose to read it that first way, and I related to it a lot. And what's going on, like, sort of behind Otis's back, so to speak, is that his mother has found out that he was giving sex advice in exchange for money. And so when he gets home, she's sitting on the couch waiting for him, and she asks him if he's been doing that, and he lies. And it's one of those things that I just wanted to slap and shake him, because Otis, if she's asking you the question at all, it means that she knows already. Like, there's no point in lying now. Babe, sweetie, it's too late. You know, it's just, there's something sort of precious about the fact that he even tried to lie. It's too late. Do you really think that she would ask you something that specific if she didn't have all the information already? Come on. But that scene ends with her. She says, "You look just like your father when you lie," which is a cutting line. Damn. He sits down and tries to be like, let's have a rational conversation, which again does sound like Remy. Really, it does. I was kind of grossed out. And she just says, "I can't even talk to you right now." And she gets up and leaves. I'm real curious where that's going to go. So with that, let's talk about Jean. Her notes got photocopied and handed out all over the school. She is already angry at Otis, and she doesn't even know that he's the one who stole the notes in the first place in order for them to be photocopied. I have to assume she will find out, and when she does, it's going to be a shit show, I would imagine. Because he pure stole those notes because he wanted to see what Ola was talking about. You know, like, that for me is the part that gets me the most upset, is you had already, like, things with Ola were over and you knew that you didn't care about her the way that you care about Maeve. And you still considered it so important that you find out what she said about you. When truly, in the end, it wasn't going to matter, you know? So she gets called in to the headmaster's office. And we have Olivia, and I don't know what her boyfriend's name. I'm looking through real quick Ashleigh's list of names here. I don't think that she's listed on this. Or maybe it's Malek, Olivia's boyfriend. Yes, right below Olivia. Jesus Christ, Natasha. Thank you, Ashleigh. He, it turns out, is only 15. And so being below the age of consent for whatever, you know, country this is meant to be, she could be brought up on statutory rape charges for having sex with him. He had been lying to her about his age this whole time. So that was in the notes, and that's I appreciated that everything in the notes is not just about fetishes, which is one of the things that is listed about him. It's not just about preferences. It's not just about sexual habits or body health. There is something that is materially important to know, actually. You know, the fact that he's lying about his age could be a huge problem for her. Were his parents interested in pressing charges? It turns out that they're not, thank God. But I did just sort of like that dash of realism thrown in there. This isn't simply an argument about whether or not it's like appropriate for Jean to be having these kinds of conversations with teenagers. There's also the question of like, well, this relationship is technically illegal. What kind of obligation does she have to say or do anything about this? Personally, I don't think she has any. A 15 and a 16-year-old. Come on. Yes, one's technically past the age of consent, but they are practically the same age. It's fine. I'm really not worried about it. That said, the law isn't necessarily going to look on it that way. So, I don't know. I do think that's an interesting question. And this is when the headmaster gives her the boot. And I believe that it's like on her way out of there that she finds out that Otis had been giving advice for money. And she gets, you know, a shock when somebody says, like, I'll be missing you because at least you were free. The other kid I had to pay. And she didn't know, like, the whole way that this goes is, first, she calls up Jakob to talk to him about what's going on because she doesn't feel like she has anybody else to talk to. And I felt so mixed about this. So last episode, I was very pro Jean because I felt like she was trying to draw boundaries in her life, and Jakob, I definitely think, was stomping all over them. And yet the show is trying to sort of paint her as being unreasonable, and I don't think she was being unreasonable. But I definitely completely forgot about that she confessed to kissing Remy. I swear to God, you guys, it completely slipped my mind. I just forgot. So then it like made sense, the fact that, okay, that's meant to be that she's like sort of finding reasons to push him away, and kissing Remy might have fallen in that. That maybe she kissed him because she's like not feeling ready. But I don't think, she was just annoyed with her boyfriend, and for very valid reasons. And granted, you don't get to just go kiss your ex every time you're annoyed with your boyfriend. But I still think that her stance on a lot of the other stuff was fair. That said, I do think that Jakob is within his rights. If the woman that you're like practically living with kisses her ex, break up with her. I don't think that he's wrong for that at all. I'm just saying that I still do see from her perspective. I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that her kissing Remy is understandable from Jakob's perspective. And I remain unclear where the show stands. Because like I said, I feel like she's supposed to be seen as unreasonable. I just don't see her that way. So she goes over to see him. And it's sort of weird. He's repairing a sink. And I think this is meant to be like somebody else's home. I don't know if we've seen this place before. But it's quite stunning, this bedroom that she is standing in and looking out the window. And she's asking what he thinks she should do. And he says the only thing you can do is talk to him. This view, guys, I'm watching this with the rolling fields and everything outside. It definitely looks like England. And wow, what an amazing spot to have your bed. I swear, it is gorgeous. And he says, and she basically asks him, would you like to go for a drink after this? And he says, I'm afraid I can't do that. And she tries to play it off. It was one stupid kiss. You really can't forgive me. And he says, and this is part of what kind of annoyed me, I may not be as intellectual as your ex-husband, but I do know my boundaries. I can't go through that kind of pain again. I'm not sure if I could get up. And I think that could be taken in a number of ways. But he says about his boundaries, and it bothers me a bit that his boundaries get respected here, but her boundaries earlier were treated as unreasonable. I just don't really feel like that's fair. And what bothers me is that I can't tell if the show thinks it's fair. So I'm genuinely curious, people watching, how you felt about this. Jean's clearly in the wrong for kissing Remy, but her irritation with him feels real, and with him being Jakob. Is it supposed to be that all of those little things weren't actually bothering her and she just kind of made them the issue instead of her own guilt? Is that what I'm supposed to be reading here? Because, I mean, he was out there screwing in a shelf she didn't ask for during a session. I don't know. That feels fucking fair. Anyway, he says, you're not ready for the kind of intimacy I'm looking for. And she turns and gives him this look when he says that. Like a look of genuine shock. When I really thought that she knew that. I thought that she had... Is that him repeating back a line to her that she said to him? Is that the shock here? Maybe that's what it is. Because it does have the ring of something she'd say. And I remember her rejecting him initially as more than just somebody to sleep with. So maybe that's what it is that he's repeating back to her what she said, and that takes her off guard. And she just kind of tries to smile and say, understood, as she walks out. And it sort of seems like she's cool and she gets it. But when she leaves the room, you guys, here was some acting. This actually kind of got me. It's like kind of getting me now as I watch it. She holds on to the door and window. And there's a sense, she puts her hand to her chest and like kind of like to her stomach, like curves in a way like she feels nauseous. And it's clear this is absolutely fucking devastating for her. She was able to make it out of that room with her dignity, but barely. Had he walked through that door right there, he would have seen her begin to fall apart. And I wish so much that she would be willing to show that to Jakob. Because I don't know that would fix everything. You know, like I said, I think she has some points that he could work on. But seeing that she was willing to be this vulnerable, I think would go a long way toward proving that maybe she is ready for that kind of intimacy. It's just, God, I love the two of them together, and I want her to have a conversation about this where she isn't kind of an ice queen about it, you know? And also saying it was one stupid kiss. Trying to minimize the thing that you did that hurt somebody isn't the fucking look, you know? It's just, that ain't it, chief. When somebody's upset, you don't act like they're overreacting. It's not fair. You know, if he had done this, especially with her history with Remy, I don't think she'd get past it either. So personally, I just was like, oh, like not only does that, for me, have the ring of, yeah, you aren't ready, but also it feels like it's her being a little bit desperate to quickly end this in a way that does not suggest she really understands how hurt he is at all, you know? So, like I said, the episode ends with her waiting on the couch for Otis to get home. And she basically like tells him fuck off and die before she gets up and walks away. And I was like, fair. So we're going to talk about Eric next. This is compelling. Eric goes to church with Remy. And wait, not Remy. Oh my God. What's his name, guys? Holy shit. I don't know why I can't remember it. I can't believe I called him Remy, though. That's fucked up. Raheem. Oh, that's why. Because it's pretty close. Okay. He goes to church with him. And I enjoy the fact that Raheem even wants to go. He is interested in doing something with Eric that is not particularly familiar to him. As it turns out, his family is atheist. And, you know, I said before that I found it interesting for the show to have a gay character who was Christian and actually believed. Because those things are not portrayed as being friendly to one another in most fiction. Usually they are mutually exclusive. And he says with all honesty to the preacher, when the man comes to like introduce himself, that he doesn't believe in Jesus. And the preacher just sort of is like pats his face as he walks away. And in a way I was like, man, you just set yourself up there because you do not understand how he is going to beeline toward you after the service is over to try and convert your ass. However, afterward, he talks with Eric, and he is sort of mocking about religion in a general way, until Eric says to him, I believe this, actually, it's not just my family. And Raheem is surprised the way that I was surprised the first time, when he, assumed that basically Eric was pretending in order to keep this front up for the sake of his family. But it did not occur to him that Eric actually believed it. And Eric seems surprised by it. That Raheem doesn't get this about him. And Raheem asks, how can you believe in a God that doesn't think you should exist? My family had to leave their country because of religion. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's okay. It's our differences that make me love you. We'll agree to disagree. And Eric says, love? And Raheem just asks, does that freak you out? And Eric says, no, I love you too. And Raheem had seemed so cool when he said, did that freak you out? I really thought, is this guy supernaturally chill? How is he this relaxed? But when Eric says, no, I love you too, he lets out this huge sigh of relief and says, I think my heart stopped for a moment. And I was so relieved to see a genuine moment of him being a little wrong-footed, Because what I like about Raheem is that he is so direct and chill. But there was a part of me that was if he is super unrattled by this, I'm not going to think he's a person anymore. There's a point at which, come on. So, before they went to church, Eric had said to him, I can't be the way I normally am there. I have to be more serious, if you get it. And at first I was tempted to put what his mother says down to that. But I don't think that's it. She comes into Eric's room, grabbing some dishes and stuff that he has left around. And he says something like, your thoughts are very loud, Mum, which I thought was really well put. And she says, that boy is not right for you. Eric says, you don't think any boy is right for me. And she says, it's not him. It's you. You act like a different person when you're around him. Like you're trying to be something that you're not. He doesn't make you sparkle. And then she just leaves. And this was an interesting moment for me because the way that Eric said, you don't think any boy is right for me, I assumed that this was him saying, you don't want me to be gay. That's the problem. I feel like that's what he was saying. But instead, it seems like she's genuinely trying to be on board with him dating men. It's not like that's the problem here. She's trying to have his best interests at heart. And the issue she has is not with his partner's gender. It is about his health in the relationship, which is really sweet. And I think that kind of caught him off guard. I have, guys, complicated feelings about this because I said the same thing, that Eric felt like he was pretending to be somebody else for Raheem. I mean, at the same time, he's only a teenager and it's possible that he doesn't quite know who he is, and trying on different hats and exploring different things. There's nothing wrong with that. But I can see what she means. At the same time, if we're presenting Adam as the only other option, I also understand why Otis had so many hang-ups about that and why Eric decided to go and tell Adam that he wasn't going to be coming outside anymore. So this show has been pretty good so far about not making it that people only have one potential partner on the out of all the options out there, but or two even. I guess we'll see where this goes. Like I said, there's only one episode left, so I don't know what to expect in that regard. So that's everything with these two. Lastly, I'm going to talk about Maeve, and then we'll talk about the group session with all the girls at school. So, oh, shit, no. I got to talk about Maeve, and then I got to talk about Jackson. Then I'll talk about the girls. Maeve, real quick, the boy across the street, Isaac, is spying because he does not trust her mom. And he sees that her mother acts like she's going to work and then turns around, circles back, and goes back into the trailer and tells Maeve. It's hard to know. She calls him a shit stirrer. And there's a part of me that gets what she means. But also he's looking out for her in a way, you know? And I think that's nice to know. I think there's a part of her that really appreciates that. And what I really loved about this was it turns out that her mother did get fired. That's why she came home in tears. You know, Maeve was right about spotting that something was wrong. But Maeve doesn't completely lose her shit. I thought she might. And there's something about the fact that she has grown enough that she can understand her mother's position here that really it makes me feel very warmly towards her. You know, I totally get why she has the kinds of baggage that she does around trust, especially with her mother. But I can also understand how, knowing what thin ice she's walking on, her mother doesn't know how to tell her and is probably hoping that she'll find another job before Maeve ever finds out and she'll be able to transition seamlessly. Because I do believe she's going to try and find something. That said, the fact that she came home and like immediately just sat in front of the TV with a snack doesn't bode super well. You know, like the first time, I would have loved to see her doing something to indicate that she was trying to get a job. But I don't even know what that would look like. So Maeve like tells her that she understands, but then says, "You lie to me one more time and you're out." And she doesn't say it harshly. She's just being very matter-of-fact about it. But she's drawing a boundary. And that feels like, you know, a theme in this episode. And I just really appreciated that, because not trusting anybody or not being willing to give any second chances at all, when it really does feel like somebody has been doing their best, it's like, I can't fault a person for feeling this way. But at the same time, I don't want them to hold a standard that's kind of impossible for anybody to meet. People are going to let you down even when they are trying to be and do better. And they're genuinely accomplishing that sometimes. You can be somebody who's doing better and being better and still let a person down. And I'm very curious about how her mother was fired. Like, what happened? I don't know if it matters, but, you know, I am curious. I'm surprised that Maeve didn't ask. All right, so Jackson. The thing with Jackson is really something. So his moms pick him up at school, and they are going to take him to see a counselor. And on the way, they're sort of like already snarking at each other. But on the way, they get a flat. And they're arguing with one another even about just changing the tire. And he sort of snorts to himself. And one of them, I don't remember which one of them, asks, "What is it you're laughing about?" And he says, "Because you both just need to get a divorce." And Roz says, "Why would you say that?" And he says, "Because it's true. You fight all the time. You're so angry at Mom, but you pretend that you're not. And you're so scared I won't love you like a biological mom that you just spend most of your time pushing us both away. I just think we'd all be a lot happier if you just get a divorce." And she stomps off. And he looks at Sophia, who gives him a glare, and he goes after Roz. So the thing is here, they have a good conversation. But I don't feel like they actually address the problem exactly, you know? I mean, I guess they kind of do. He comes to sit next to her, and she says, I don't want to talk to you right now, hence why I walked away. I just need a moment alone. And she confesses to him that she has been so worried that he would never love her the way that he loves a biological mother. That basically what he said is her worst fear. And he tries to say that he didn't mean it, but she's like, you did, though. That's part of why I pushed you about swimming, because that was something that could connect the two of us. That is my passion. And it felt like something that we could do together. And he says, I thought it was because you couldn't compete anymore and you were living your dream through me. And she sort of stops and goes, well, maybe there's a bit of truth in that. And I appreciated her admitting that. I genuinely thought you enjoyed it. And he says, I did a lot. But what I enjoyed when I was a kid was spending time with you. And, you know, and he says that you were my hero when we were together. I felt like I could do anything. And I just wished that there was a little bit of acknowledgement of like, yeah, you can love swimming, but you didn't see the pain that he was clearly, like he so clearly didn't want to do this anymore. And you were ignoring his resistance. And I guess that's supposed to be like her saying, that's why I was so happy that you wanted to swim. But it's like, it's one thing for you to be happy about something and to cling to it to a point, but it's another thing to like berate your kid and put the kind of pressure on him. Like, we're acting like she was just obsessing a little bit, but she gave him an eating disorder, you know, like I don't feel like the extent of the damage was addressed. But that's been a common theme with this show that I kind of have to get over. Every episode, it feels like we sort of tie something up, and it never feels like, to me, the depth of the damage that was done is addressed. And I guess there's just not time, you know? What are we going to do? But, yeah, it just... he finally tells her that he doesn't want to swim anymore. It just doesn't make me happy. And then he tells her that he got a part in the school play, and she is actually pleased to hear that. Like, it's clear that she's pleasantly surprised, I think, by the fact that he is doing something else. I think that she was kind of worried that maybe if he quit swimming, he would just lose his drive, you know, and I could understand that. So the fact that he is choosing to become involved in something else means that it's not like he's just kind of winding down in terms of his overall interest or involvement. It's just that isn't the thing. So yeah, the surprise when she says that. And then he's playing Romeo and she smiles and says, well, you were very believable as Joseph. And that is the end of the scene with the two of them. Oh God, guys, I mentally blocked out talking about Adam because I didn't want to. We're going to do it really quick. I got to rip the Band-Aid off. So I was right about Adam's affinity for dogs. We see him training the shop owner, I think's dog, who is allegedly impossible to train. And he is succeeding at it. And it's really cute to watch the way that he trains her and how like invested he gets. And he has a whole little system with, you know, basically bribing her with ham. It got my hopes up so much. And then the owner congratulates him, tells him, you're going to be getting close to Employee of the Month. I'm going to go to a movie. You can lock up. And gives him the keys. And Adam locks up incorrectly. And the door swings back open again. This is one of those things where a million different people could see this a different way. I see a kid that is doing his fucking best and genuinely means well, but just doesn't have the kind of attention to detail he should. For who knows how many reasons, you know? Like, he's been through a lot. He's preoccupied a bit. But I could see people saying that, like, seeing it as that he didn't really pay attention and didn't try hard enough. It just feels to me like such bad luck. You know, it just doesn't feel fair. And so we see the door partially swing open when he is walking away. And when he comes in the morning, the place is trashed. The register is open. Half the shit in the place is gone. And the owner just looks at him and shakes his head. And I was so... He just turns around and leaves. I was hoping that he would try and talk to him and explain. There's no explanation. You know, it felt like he really threw the towel in. And I think that this is meant to be the thing that pushes him towards maybe volunteering with dogs, hopefully, and he finds something that he really is good at and likes. I just hated to see this be another thing that he could chalk himself up as a loser for, you know? I want him to succeed at something. I just really do feel for the kid. Getting kicked while he's down, you know? So, all right, now let's talk about what's going on with the girls. So, like I said earlier, the headmaster circulated the pages of Jean's notes. And one of the things that gets, like, popularized on the walls, I guess popularized isn't really the word I want, but we'll go with it. Somebody writes on the girls' locker room mirror in lipstick that Mrs. What's it? Sands? Is that her name? Miss Sands is a dirty talking slut. And as we find out later, it was a dude. But because it's written in lipstick and because it's in the girls' locker room, everybody assumes that it's a girl. So Miss Sands holds them all after school to get them to admit who it was. And nobody's fessing up because, as it turns out, it's none of them. And we find out a little bit later that Miss Sands is going to go and have a quickie with the chemistry teacher. And part of her overall, like, scheme here was to give the girls an impossible task so that she could have some extra time with him, which I found pretty fun, actually. And he calls her evil, and she gets very turned on by it, and that was funny. But the girls, we kind of finally have an airing of the grievances. Ola and Maeve start to argue with one another about what happened with Otis. And Ola says to Maeve, like, oh, you tried to steal my man away from me. And Maeve says, no, I had to tell him how I felt. But later on, when they're all walking home after everything has been sort of cleared, all the air is cleared, she says, I did try and steal him. I'm sorry. And, you know, I appreciate that because that was my feeling as well, was that it was the wrong time to tell him you don't do it when he's in the middle of a thing with somebody else. It's just, you lost your chance and now you wait until he's single again due to other reasons, not because you caused a thing, you know? And I really appreciated her and Ola eventually, like, coming to an understanding. And she said, I did like him, but I kind of wanted to beat you too, says Ola. Which, I mean, I can understand because he liked her so much, you know, feeling a bit of a challenge there. And in the middle of the fight that she and Ola are still having, because they're, you know, at the detention, I guess you'd call it, we see Aimee really beginning to freak out. And she's been on the edge all day. And I think it should be noted what she's been wearing as well. She's been completely covered up. Everything that she's wearing goes up to her neck, buttoned up all the way under her chin. In this scene, she's literally wearing a turtleneck. Her makeup is very toned down, and her hair is also toned down. Like, it's pulled back, and just the overall look is somebody who does not want to draw attention to herself. And that's what happens when you begin to blame yourself for your assault. There are a lot of women who go through this, feeling like maybe if I change a thing about me, it won't happen. It gives us a sense of control. It's a complete bullshit, but, you know, there's a feeling there, and that's part of why patriarchy has rubbed it into us, because we are being given an illusion of control in a system that does not care about us. So she freaks out, and the whole assignment that these girls were given is what bonds us together as women. And they've talked about all kinds of interests, not all of them share, and finally they all strike on one, which is that they have all been victims of some kind of sexual assault. Whether that be somebody flashing them, somebody groping them, and they all have had, like, experience. Even with Ola, she wasn't assaulted, but she was followed. And I don't know if you guys have ever experienced being followed by somebody that you can't be sure, but you think is specifically following you. There is nothing quite as scary as that, especially the time it happened to me was before cell phones. And I did not know what to do because I was in a city where I didn't know anybody. It was like, you know, it was late enough that most things were closed, and I really did not know what to do. I was walking in my car, and thankfully I wound up getting to it sooner than I think maybe the guy thought I would, and it wound up being a nothing. But I don't know if it would have wound up being nothing had the car been further away. It, you know, it just felt like he was kind of like seeing what the whole situation was and scoping it out. And had circumstances been slightly different, I would have been in a very different situation. And so for Ola, it's like, yeah, she wasn't technically assaulted, but it feels like the precursor to it. And guys like that enjoy the fear. There's actually a post that you can find. You know, there's been a whole lot of like sort of uprisings and then banishment, I guess is the word I want, of different forums and things like 4chan for guys who are incels talking about dealing with dating and women. And there's one that's really haunted me for a long time, which is a guy who describes following a girl specifically to scare her. And he emphasizes that he had no intention of actually doing anything to hurt her. He was never going to lay a hand on her. But that he enjoyed the feeling of power it gave him to see how scared she became just because he was behind her. He literally says it felt good. And it's the kind of thing that, like, yeah, you could try and be like, oh, well, nothing came of it. He didn't actually do anything, and he says he didn't intend to. But if he's getting off on that kind of power just from following a woman, I do not believe he will remain satisfied with that power. Somebody who has that kind of view of women is going to escalate until actual rape is happening. Because that's what rape is about. It's enjoying the fact that you are doing something to somebody that they cannot stop, and that you are degrading them and taking their power away from them. So if you enjoy making a woman feel powerless by following her, there is no reason to think that eventually you are not going to enjoy making a woman feel powerless by raping one. There's just no reason to not think that's in your future. And I really wonder all the time what happened to that guy, what he's doing now. Because it just, for me, it's like an absolute straight line from one to the other. So that whole story with Ola really like got to me, because it's the kind of thing that I think a lot of people would dismiss as not being like of particular importance, but I think it is actually a lot more important than we're willing to admit. And Olivia, had a tick grabbed, like it was nothing, by a bunch of guys just walking by. And this is when, Aimee tells them all about what happened on the bus and how this guy, the fact that he had such a kind face is part of what freaks her out. Because if he, such a nice seeming guy, could do something like this, that means any guy could do something like this, which is honestly an important lesson to learn as a woman. I think that we think you can always tell, and you can't, like, not at first anyway. I think as you get older, you get better at seeing the little giveaways and the red flags. But when you're younger, you have a much more black and white version of what a rapist looks like. And it can be a really awful shock to find out how good people like that are at hiding in regular society and seeming like normal people. So they all commiserate on this. And eventually Miss Sands comes and lets them out, because as it turns out, it's actually kind of ties in. The person writing these messages about her is in love with her and is like trying to shame her into not being with the guy she's with. It's a real backward fucking approach. But yeah, it turns out to not be any of the girls, so they get released. And Ola, who had been taken to the dump by Adam that one time, is like, hey, do you guys want to let off some steam? And they go to the dump and put their fucking goggles on and get their bats out. And absolutely, I think Aimee starts out with a sledgehammer, and they absolutely trash this fucking car in a moment that is just really cathartic. A bunch of women just, it felt like that Beyonce video when she got cheated on and she's just going up and down the street beating the shit out of these people's cars. I just really enjoyed the scene and the whole energy behind it, because the rage is real, and at that age, when you're just really beginning to feel it, you don't even know how bad the rage is going to be, I think back to my reaction to my mother's virulent feminism when I was in high school and how little patience I had. I was just like, yeah, I know, men are scum. And now I'm just like, no, she was right. I didn't understand, but men are such scum, and I just didn't get it, So yeah, this scene was so good. And like I said, as we're walking home, people sort of make up with each other. And the most important makeup is between Maeve and Lily. And Lily tries to say first that they should just be friends. And that's supposed to be kind of the, that I guess I can forgive you for kissing me and we can just be regular friends. And Ola's like obviously disappointed, but like, okay. And then as she's walking away in this awkward moment, Lily turns around and says, wait, I think I don't want to be just friends. And Ola asks why, and she says, because you smell so much better than a boy, and kisses her. This is one of those things that I have to assume happens, that like a person isn't necessarily aware that they're bisexual or pansexual or even gay, and they get hit on by somebody, and at first they're like, wait, what? And then they stop and they go, actually, I had a girl that I didn't even fucking put it together, you guys. Sometimes I realize how dense I was as a high schooler. But there was a girl that had a crush on me, that was hitting on me at a party at graduation. There was one girl who straight up sat in my lap and tried to make out with me, and that I knew what was happening. But there was another girl who I actually really liked. We hung out a lot, and I didn't realize at all that she had a crush on me. I really just thought we were friends. And sometimes I think about it and I'm just like, did I sort of, because I was so surprised at the sudden realization, did I like quash something that could have actually turned into something? And would I have eventually found out that I'm bi if I had like given her more of a chance? I just don't see it for myself. I just don't really think so. But I do wonder, you know, especially at that age, when you're not so set in your ways, if there's more potential to just be like, well, what the hell? Give it a shot, you know? So yeah, this scene, I was just really happy because you guys know, I really wanted Ola and Lily to be together. Like they just seem so good together. And I was worried that it was going to turn into like, she clearly has a crush on her friend and now this is weird. And I'm glad that it seems not. So yay, good for them. I really have to wrap up. I'm over time. I'm sorry, guys. A bunch of people made comments and I would like to read them, but I don't want to go further over. I'm already 6 minutes. But I really appreciate you all participating. And thank you again to Ashleigh for leaving the character names in the comments. It helped a lot. I can't believe the next episode is the finale, you guys. What? I'm not ready. But I will be seeing you guys. Let's see. When is that episode? August 3rd. So almost a month away. It's going to be a minute. But I will see you then. And until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.